The time has come, the gardener said, to grow so many things, from beans to greens to fruiting crops to cabbages and what you might call Swedes, but I call them rutabagas. Hey everyone, my name may not be Alice, but Natissa here, and welcome to You Can Grow Too. It is time to plant for fall and winter. I am so excited. We're still in the middle of our very, very hot summertime. For some of you, you might be thinking, is she a little late to start planting for fall? And actually here in the subtropical climates and maybe tropical climates, I am located in subtropical Florida. This is our time. This is our best time to grow some of the common food crops that we always try to grow in our spring and summer and fail and think that we're bad gardeners when it's all about the timing. This video is part number 1 of everything I'm growing for the fall and winter season. And the reason why I'm doing it in a few parts is because, well, one reason is I love to grow so many things. If you have seen some of my videos in the past, you probably figured that out. And I love to talk about the different varieties and why I am growing them, because I think that's a lot of information for us gardeners if, we might want to grow something or whatever, especially if you're in a very similar climate to me, where very hot and humid. With so many things to grow, I need to do it in multiple parts. But the big reason why I am doing this in multiple parts is based on the video that I did last year. And it was titled, What to Grow in Florida Fall. And it's not just for Florida growers. I just targeted it to those in subtropical and tropical climates, because in there I kind of go into the timing of when I plant these things in the fall and winter. I go over my early sowings of fall, mid-fall sowings, and late fall sowings. So this video is all about the things that I'm sowing for early portion of fall. It's not fall yet, but this is getting those plants started so I can get them in the ground around the start of fall, so that way they have time to really develop, and that way we'll have a good harvest this year. Before I get into the list of what I'm going to be planting now, I want to do a quick drive-by over the goals that I have set for this fall and winter season. A goal that I want to accomplish is more fresh eating out of the garden. I'm very into the thought of preserving food. I think that's a great skill and a very much needed skill in our society still. And not wanting to get into, I want to get into canning, but I do admit that I'm a little cautious and hesitant, because that is something you really need to know what you're doing. And someday I do a little bit of cannings of jams. But I do feel like the thing that makes most sense that I should focus on is fresh eating out of the garden. And we can grow year-round here, and I do, but I want to improve that. I want to get to a point where I can pretty much go outside at any point and pretty much make a meal out of that. So something I'm going to be trying to do, since that is my goal, more fresh eating out of the garden continuously, is to succession sow. And believe it or not, I've never really tried it in my fall and winter season because, this is about my 5th year of growing, and if you've gardened for a while, you know that the first couple of years are just getting to know how plants grow, and I feel like I'm at that point now where I can start playing around with that. And succession sowing is basically where you sow part of your crops at maybe the beginning of the season, and then later on you start another round of that same crop, so that way as you're harvesting out that crop, there's some more of it growing, and then you harvest the other portion later. So I've seen a little bit of the benefit. It's something I'll get into more, but I think now is the time for me to step up my game and do some succession sowing and see if I can extend out my fresh eating that way. Another big thing I want to do this season, and I mentioned it last season, I had some portions in my garden that get shaded out in the fall and winter, and I didn't really care much about them. I did throw plants in the ground, and whatever happened over there. But I've had some very good harvests from that shaded area, and that kind of inspired me to think of succession sowing, because as a lot of my main garden was done as far as getting fresh food out, it was those shaded spots that started producing the food as the sun started coming over and the temperature started to warm up. So I want to utilize those not so good garden spots in the fall and winter season because they definitely have a place. More mulch. We did very well with that last season. In fact, you've probably seen in many of the tours I had piles and piles of mulch, and it might have looked like the same pile the whole time when actually we were using the mulch and just bringing more in. But the goal I have that I need to do is I need to have this whole entire garden, more than what you see a lot of the times, it all needs to be mulched, heavily mulched before our spring and summer, because that is my most difficult time to grow. I am seeing more and more, I knew the answer to it, but I'm seeing more and more the importance of having, a lot of mulch, thick, very deep, so that way to keep the moisture in, because that's one of my struggles, especially when we don't always have the rain we need and the sun is very intense where I live. So more mulch. And last but not least, this fall and winter, I am going to be playing around with the timing of some of these crops. There are some food crops I'm going to be showing you today that I actually usually grow in my spring and summertime. And I thought I was doing very well at it, and maybe at a point I was, but these past 2 years have been just so difficult with growing as the season started to really heat up, and it really did heat up faster than I remember the past few years ago. So I did a video last year, getting close to around this time. It was a short. It was my Rebel seedlings, and little did I know that that short video would really kind of change my thinking in how I'm going to do this season. In that video, I had a small pepper plant that actually reseeded itself. It was around September when that happened, and I just let it go. I did tend to it a little bit because it was so hot, and I just kept it watered, and it grew through our fall and winter time. And I will say that it didn't look too good because it was in the shade, not getting enough warmth as peppers like. But as soon as spring started really setting in and the sun really started to touch it and the temperatures were warming, that plant exploded, and it was one of my best pepper plants this season. It was the bird beak pepper that you saw in the first spring tour. And on my Instagram, I even titled that picture "Makes Me Think," because it really did make me think about, wow, that pepper plant did so well, because I believe it started late summer, so we're getting to that time now. It had that time to really establish a root system. So by the time our heat and intense sun came, it was pretty ready to go. Whereas the other pepper plants that I had started in late winter time, getting them out in the spring when things started heating up very fast for us, they struggled a lot. So this season, fall and winter, I am actually going to try, well, you're going to see. So now that you know the goals of this fall and winter season for me, let's get into what I am planting right now. I have my display here. Let's see. Starting with our alliums. I'm going to try this again. It is our garlic, our green garlic. I don't really grow bulbing garlic here. I am trying society garlic out here, and it's looking okay. I mean, I think it goes dormant during our summer. I'm still learning about it. Either way, I still want to try this green garlic. I've tried multiple times, and I don't know. I think partially it was bad seed one year, so we're gonna give it a go again. Oh yes, so along with the alliums, like our garlic, onions are part of that. Green onions. Oh my goodness, last fall and winter, no green onions for me. Long story short, I really do believe it was bad seed based on what others have said as well. So we're gonna give this a try because we eat a lot of onions. I'm going to try a new one to me. It's Italian Red of Florence. Very pretty looking. So Yeah, we'll try that one too. And a bulbing onion and a couple, was it last year? Might have been the year before that. Anyways, we did grow bulbing onions and had good success, but I'm pretty darn sure it was a long day onion. And here in the South, you want to do a short day onion. And I did buy the seed packet from a local big box store, thinking, oh, of course it's gonna be short day onion because we're in the South. And it didn't say it on the back at all, but after purchasing it, I looked it up as, oh, it's a long day onion. I'll try to remember what variety it was and put it on the screen for you, but either way, it still grew bulb onions. Maybe it wasn't the max of what it should have been, but it still was a bulbing onion. My first time, very proud, and they tasted great. So now this year I am doing the Texas Grano, and this one does say short day variety, so I'm expecting great things. All right, next, our cucumbers. So cucumbers, I really want to grow cucumbers, and I struggle very badly with those green caterpillars, and the plant can start growing very well and then practically the next day it's gone. And then if it's not the green caterpillars, it's like powdery mildew or something. So on this channel I mentioned that, and I had a viewer tell me that, and they're not too far away from me, they mentioned that they grow Marketmore cucumbers. And I thought, I have those, I'm gonna give them a try. I felt very encouraged by their experience and saying how it produced very well for them. And I looked in my stash of cucumbers and I didn't have any Marketmore. And I remembered that I gave it to someone who can grow cucumbers. No regrets there, but I did find, is it Poinsett 76? I think that's how it's pronounced. But I wanted to try these because I've read in a couple of different places that this is very disease resistant. And of course you got to know what diseases it's resistant to and what diseases you have in your garden. But I live in the subtropics, it's humid, disease everywhere. Anything that's disease resistant, for the most part, I feel like I have a little bit more of a chance. So I even compared this to the Marketmore, and this one, this Poinsett, has more of a disease resistant on multiple different diseases. So we'll see about that. And they've even mentioned how this is a popular choice for the deep south where I am. So we'll see. I want to try this again. It is the mouse melon or the cucamelon. And this one I've grown and it actually started out pretty good. And again, those little green caterpillars, relentless. I really enjoyed what I had from the plant that was growing. And I think, I'll have to see if I can find my records, but I think I planted it in spring. That might have been my problem. So we're gonna try this now in fall, or at least get it started now. So that way it's going in fall. And last but not least, my tried and true, but actually had a little trouble with it this summer because of where I planted it. I think it was too much sun. It has been too much heat, so I don't think my flowers were setting, but I know it can grow in the fall, and that is my beloved Indian Burgherkin. This was also in the Rebel Shorts video. It came up probably again in September, and it did produce some of these little cucumber-like fruits. So I'm going to intentionally plant it this time. All right, what is next? A flower, one flower. Actually, some of my herbs might be considered flowers, but we're gonna try this again. This is a flower that I had found while walking my dog in the back of our park, our local park that we go to. And it is, well, I don't know if it is what it is, but I'm guessing it's a Spanish daisy. It was growing in just nothing but sand, and I'm pretty darn sure it was growing so well because it was established. And I did plant this in the spring, and I believe this was during my seedling tours that I had showed you. And it was looking pretty good, but it just kind of stalled out in its little container. And I thought, well, maybe I need to get it outside, because sometimes that is with plants. It'll just sit there in a container at a small size doing nothing, then you get it out and it just starts growing. But no, it died right away. And I should know this, but I guess because, I don't know, but I am seeing it more and more, the importance of maybe starting some of these plants right now, late summer, early fall, get that head start because we don't freeze here hardly. So that's the key. We don't really freeze. So a lot of these plants are growing through our fall and winter time. So anyhow, I'm going to try this flower again. I think that will help. Starting it now and letting it grow through our fall and winter. The next set, we have our herbs. And again, this looked good. It started out well. It definitely got knocked down by spider mites, and I just couldn't get them under control with my soapy water, as I can do sometimes. And that is, well, there's not really a picture of it, but the ashwagandha. And it kind of grows like a cucumber, or not cucumber, it grows like an eggplant. It was, like I said, starting to grow well. So I'm wondering if I get this growing again, but through fall and winter, is it going to work out better? Because it did get really hot out. And another clue I had to that maybe I do need to start it in fall was at the local plant festival I went to this last April. And someone had a large ashwagandha plant planted in a container. And I thought to myself, yeah, obviously they planted that way earlier than I had. So that's my thought is let's start it now and get it growing through fall and winter. I'm going to try again. Chamomile. I got the furthest I ever got was this spring. I did get a couple of blooms. For me, that is a success. I really want to get this to grow. Now you might see this as a flower, and it is a flower, but I always see this as an herb, and that is the purple cone flower. Echinacea, I think, is the other name for it. But I'm going to try it again. I can get it to sprout, the seeds. It's just once I get it out in my garden, it just seems to be a target for pests. So I'm going to keep trying. Another herb I want to try, and I did try it in spring, got it outside, but again, I think it just got too hot too fast. So I'm going to try it now. And I think it's pronounced hyssop. And I don't know, we'll see. I like to try different herbs. Oh, one I kind of had success with, and it does get too hot here. I never expect it to go through our summer, but maybe if I get it through fall and winter, gonna try some peppermint. And another herb that actually did not sprout for me at all this spring. I saw someone growing this on a video and theirs looked very good. And again, it was summer when they were showing it. So chances are maybe they planted it in fall and winter, but that is, let me see if I'm pronouncing it right, hopefully, Spilanthes, also known as the toothache plant. I mentioned before that I do want to get herbs, like medicinal herbs on the property and learn how to work with those just because I feel like that's important. Another herb that actually I did grow, I think it was successful. I don't know if I have a picture of when it was growing, but I do want to give summer savory another try. I did start this late winter and got it out, spring and summer again, but maybe fall and winter will be better. And last but not least, another beautiful flower, but I just see it as an herb, and it is the yarrow, the common yarrow. And this actually very, very small seed, and it grew very well, but I don't know if it's still out there. Like I said, the summer's been so hot. I admit I haven't been out there as much as I would like to, just because it is so hot, humid, and the bugs are all over the place. So, we'll see. I've seen this growing at a local botanical gardens to me, and it was sort of a native herb garden. If it wasn't all natives, it were just things that grow very well here, and yarrow was in that garden, so I'm going to keep trying. Next category. Oh, I'm hoping so much for this to work. In our squash and pumpkin category, I really want this sickle to work. Oh yes, this I got, it's very rare. I got this from Cody Cove Farms, and it is said to be a possible tropical zucchini substitute here, especially here in Florida. So it is a whole different species name. I'll put it on the screen for you. I can't pronounce that. I had this growing a couple years ago. I think I started it in the spring, and it was actually the start of a real difficult couple of years. I mentioned how this spring and summer is probably my toughest season, Well, the year before that, I thought was the toughest season, and I was growing this, and this sprawled heavily, and I see great promise with it. And I've never really grown pumpkins or squash successfully before. The only one I have was the kielbasa squash, and I grew that starting now about early August. So I am gonna give these a go, and I've been preparing my ground and everything for this plant. So that would be for the tropical summer squash, and the key being tropical, because I've tried zucchini, tried all the common things. Again, those green caterpillars, disease. It's really just not worth the fight for the amount I get. I mean, I literally grew 4 plants and only got 1 zucchini or yellow squash, and yeah, no. I mentioned to you that I did want to grow the Seminole pumpkin, and I still do, but looking through my stash, I thought, I need to try this. These are pumpkin seeds from a local nursery, Green Dreams. That's where I get some of my plants. And they specialize in plants that are going to grow well here in the subtropics and tropical portions of wherever you live, but they're located here in Florida. They sell plants that, the big box stores don't sell, and it's different food crops that maybe you've never heard of. Like I've talked about the moringa, the katuk, the tropical root crop called cassava or yucca, and those are not common food crops you're going to hear people growing, but that grows well here where I live in my subtropical, humid, hot spring and summer. So with all that said, this is actually a pumpkin variety. They didn't name what one it is, so it could be some crosses, I'm not sure, but I feel very confident in trying it because this nursery grows, like I said, things that grow well here in the subtropics. The common pumpkins and zucchinis and all those kind of squash that we see in the big box stores, they don't sell that. They sell tropical squash, tropical pumpkins. So I am very confident. Also with the pictures I've seen, it looks like it would be some sort of tropical squash. I'm very confident in just trying to see what this is. Like I said, I wouldn't do this with just any company, any store selling pumpkin seeds, but they need to be tropical squash for me. So we're gonna find out what these will be. The stack is getting smaller, and we are now gonna talk about the tomatoes that we will be growing here this fall and winter. Yes, you heard me. That is when I grow my tomatoes. Last year was the best tomato year my husband and I have ever had. And I really think a part of that had to do with the fact that I started them now at the start of August. I started them in my carport. Yes, they got leggy, but I have a video on what I did for that. And they turned out very well. Just check out the tours. So this year we're going to do that again. The first tomato, my husband's favorite, or at least one of his favorites, is the honeycomb hybrid. In the future, I actually want to do a video about this because I feel like I'm starting to hear some people talk about it, but my goodness, very different tomato. It grows very well. It doesn't talk about any resistance to anything. But I'll tell you what, this has been the healthiest, strongest tomato plant that I have grown, and it is the first to give fruit and the last to give fruit in my experience. So we're doing that. Oh, I wanted this to work last year. Black cherry. I grew this a couple years ago. At that time, that was probably my favorite tomato, favorite tasting, and well, it didn't work last year. It didn't come up at all. It's those pelleted seeds. And you could say, oh, that's why it didn't work. But last year I grew those mystery tomatoes, that heirloom seed packet that I had done. And those were all pelleted tomato seeds. And that worked, so I don't know. But hopefully. I tried this last year. It wasn't really a strong plant. It didn't even really get past the seedling stage. But I'm going to try it again. And it is the apricot zebra. And the reason why I wanted to try this is because it talks about being disease resistant, vigorous, and wildly productive. And to me, that, if all other tomatoes fail, I do want something that is going to work. And not only that, I do want it to taste good too. This, according to the pictures, and I do know that sometimes when pictures are taken of some of these food crops, it's going to be the best of the best shots so they can sell it to you. But it really does look like that it is a meaty tomato. So let's see if you can see like a nice thick meat there. I think it said something about, oh yes it does, a firm fleshed. And I don't want my tomatoes to be mushy. I do want them to have that meatier texture, I guess. So we'll see. I'm gonna try again. I did this a couple years ago, very productive, and it is the Roma tomato. And the year that I grew it, it was probably my worst tomato year, not because of disease or anything. It was because the fruit rats just took out everything. Even all the green ones that were just still growing, they just took them all. And I did get, I think, one, maybe two off of this plant. And that was pretty much practically felt like the whole year as well. It was that bad. Yeah, I remember liking it, so I want to give it a try again. Plus, it's a determinate plant. The ones I showed you were indeterminate plants and they just keep growing, whereas these determinate ones are more of like a bush style. You still need to prop them up and that sort of thing, but generally the determinates produce faster, so that can sort of, prolong the harvesting time, or I should say stagger the harvesting time and prolong it. And again, like I said, with my goals, I want to have more fresh eating out of the garden. And some of that is not only succession sowing, but finding crops that maybe produce early, some that produce later. And, all those little factors can add to that. I did this a couple years ago too, and I just want to try it again. Hopefully I have enough room for it. And that is the San Marzano. So we'll see. I remember thinking it tasted good. I chopped it up and put it in, I don't even remember what it was, probably sauce or scrambled eggs or something, and it was really nice. And of course, we are definitely going to do this. In fact, I have it self-seeding in my garden right now. That's how I know it's time to plant my tomatoes. And that is, there's not a picture here, but the Everglades tomato. And this is always raved about here if you are growing in the subtropics. And it really does grow well. It is one of my strongest growers. Gosh, I feel like I've never seen disease on it, really. I don't know, but it just clusters and clusters of these small currant red tomatoes. And when I do see them come up in the garden, usually I can tell just by looking at it that it's an Everglades tomato, because there's just something about how healthy that seedling looks. And 9 times out of 10, I am correct. So Everglades tomatoes, always, always, always. All right, some of the big tomatoes. I told you last year I had success with tomatoes, and one of them we're going to grow is what I believe to be a chocolate Cherokee. This came from the mystery heirloom seed packet I grew, and it said purple Cherokee, but I did grow a real purple Cherokee. And then when this thing came up, if you saw the past videos, you saw me trying to figure out what this thing was. And later I discovered that I'm pretty sure it's a chocolate Cherokee. So, man, that was the plant that had a huge cluster of blooms. And these were large tomatoes. Well, decently large tomatoes. You usually see that with smaller tomatoes. I just want to do this again just to see if we get that whole cluster of blooms. That was really neat. Ooh, yes, the Orange Nebraska Wedding. This was, I think, the last tomato I had of the season, and it was one of the best tomatoes I had. It was a number of reasons, I'm sure, why it was the best, because I was eating it all season. It didn't taste bad, but that last tomato, yes. So, Orange Nebraska Wedding, large orange tomatoes. My husband's favorites, or one of his favorites, the green zebra. And I don't even know if that's actually what it is. It's from that mystery heirloom seed packet again. And they produced very large green tomatoes. It had beautiful striping in it. But when you look up a green zebra tomato, generally, everything I found anyways, were those smaller green ones. And I mean, they looked good, they looked pretty, but these ones were very large, so I don't know what the deal is with that, but we're gonna grow them anyways. I'm hoping I have room for this. One of the most beautiful tomatoes I think I grew last year was the Mr. Stripey tomato. I really wanted to grow this in the past. It was one of my first big tomatoes I attempted at growing. I just think this is a very beautiful tomato and I really want to grow it again, so hopefully I have some room. I'll make some room for that. This tomato was probably one of my earlier tomatoes that did produce, and I always say beautiful, but it is true, they're all just so beautiful in their own way, and it was the Black Crim, and I really enjoyed it, and it produced a lot for one plant. I mean, I thought for me it produced a lot, so we're gonna do that again. It also is a Russian tomato, and if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those Russian varieties can handle cooler temperatures better. And I do, things do start out pretty hot here, but as the season goes, it does get a little cooler. So, it's always good to have different varieties with different characteristics because different things are always happening in the garden. And you're going to find some varieties do better, sometimes just by year and the next year, and because there's different factors happening. So we're going to get this tomato in. 2 new tomatoes to me. The giant pink Belgium. And the reason why I got it, well, a giant pink tomato, that sounds nice. But because of my confidence level is so high with growing tomatoes, because we had such a good year last year at growing the large ones, this one is said to have 1.5 pounds to 3 pound tomatoes. And I just thought that would be cool to try, so we'll see. And last but not least of the tomatoes, I might be most excited about this one, and that is the Great White. And this tomato is said to be low acidity and more of a fruity flavor. And it doesn't say it here, but I've read in a number of occasions it was like giving even different fruit profiles of what you might taste in this tomato. And I thought I've also read somewhere that this Great White might do better in hotter climates. I thought I read that somewhere. I mean, we'll find out. But I'm just very excited about this. In my mystery seed packet I grew last year, I got every single tomato that was offered in that seed packet except for the white one. That was a White Wonder, if I remember correctly. But this one's a Great White. But, I'm just very excited about this. Now the last category. And this is what I'm going to call, I don't know, I guess my timing experiment. I mentioned to you how one of my goals is I might need to figure out the timing for some of these crops that I grow in spring and summer that I thought I did well at, but now as time's going on, I don't know if it's because I'm wanting to be a better gardener, so I'm starting to see where I need to make improvements, or if things are really changing in the garden to where I need to change too. So we're going to give these a try this fall winter season, but these are the ones I'm going to plant now. Why do I do this to myself? But I'm going to try corn. And man, I was attempting to do a Three Sisters garden. I had the video planned, I was even filming it and everything, and the corn completely failed due to the pests, and I do believe the heat. It was very hard to keep things managed earlier this season. But I'm going to try to plant these and just see if this will even be doable. I'm not going to focus on a harvest. Like I said, this is strictly going to be a test of timing. So I don't even know where I'm going to plant this, but we're going to try. I really want to get something growing up that trellis on my big, what I call the Titanic beds. And I tried this in spring last year. It failed. I think, again, it was because of all the difficult factors that happened with heat, no rain, bugs, all that. And I'm going to try the Kukuzi gourd because I have so many people talking about it, saying that it does very well for them and that sort of thing. And again, maybe it's a timing thing, so we're going to try it in fall. Oh gosh, another type of gourd, also sometimes titled as a melon, but the bitter melon, we're gonna try them. and so disappointed. Actually, honestly, I was kind of embarrassed. I grew this last year in the spring into our summer. It was the white bitter melon variety. Grew beautifully on the back of where our bench is, and I had really high hopes for this. I mean, I felt very confident in it. And man, just to get a seed to germinate this season was hard enough, and then just to get one to work, got it out in the garden, it just stayed there, barely grew, and then just died. I couldn't believe it. This type of food crop, this grows wild where I live. Not these particular varieties, but we do have wild bitter gourd out here. So, I mean, there's actually one growing up one of my experimental sections of the garden that I'm actually working on a video over there. But wild bitter melon just growing. So we're going to try to germinate these seeds differently this time and just see if they'll grow in fall. I tried this a number of times. Tried it in spring. It actually looked pretty darn good, but then it would just quit on me again. Maybe it's the timing. I am going to try and hope that I have room to try the pepino. Yes, it's really interesting. It's, I guess it is native to the Andes mountain region. It says it's a cousin of eggplant. I can grow eggplant pretty well. I mean, I do think about that whole mountain region climate thing. Maybe that's why I'm struggling. I don't know. But again, trying a different time of the year might do wonders. So, yes. I grow this in spring. And I've never tried it in fall, but like I said, with our tomatoes that we grow and do very well this time of year, I'm going to try this too. Ground cherries. You've seen me plant this in the spring. You've seen me try it in these spring tours. And I mean, it grew all right, but when I see other gardeners growing it, it just looks so big, so lush. And mine never get that big and that wonderful. I mean, I had a pretty decent one this spring, so I'm wondering if I get this to grow in the fall, would it be better? That's what this whole section is about. Will they be better? And another one I think could be better in fall is the tomatillo. And I did grow it. I mean, I felt it was successful. And I think actually my reason why is because I just got it growing and just got fruit on it. The only thing is the plant keeps dying like as the fruit is ripening. So I'm going to try fall and winter again. Again with the tomatoes, they're doing well. Maybe these will do well too. And that's a thing with gardening, you know, when I define something as being successful, or maybe you as well, you need to be specific on what your goals are with that plant. And yeah, ultimately, I guess this plant was a fail in the spring through our summer. But to me, I saw the potential of what this plant could do, and if it were in better conditions, it'll probably do way better. So I'm going to try for fall, and I'm going to try just planting one tomatillo plant. That's something I have been wanting to do as well. And this is the perfect time because honestly, I'm planting so much in the fall and winter. I really am kind of wondering where I'm going to grow all of this. So that's a perfect time to experiment with that. And just a side note, so many times in gardening, we are told things, oh, don't do this, don't do that, or you have to do this, you have to do that. And yes, there are truths in a lot of those must-dos or must-not-dos, but sometimes it's not that black and white. It may not be that strict as it is presented to us. So I am going to not only see if I can just get a tomatillo to grow pretty well in the fall and winter here, but I also want to see if I can do one tomatillo plant. So we'll see. Two more that I want to see about the timing of, and that is okra. I have tried okra in the spring and the summer. Everybody talks about it, and my goodness, it just doesn't do well. I might get an okra fruit off of it, maybe two if I'm lucky, but man, no. So I was thinking about the time that I grew okra, and it was my best okra plant I've grown, and one of them did grow through part of our fall. It actually was growing in our summertime. It was early on when we started, and it got overshadowed by a bunch of different plants. And as we were cleaning out the summer garden, I was like, oh, there's that okra. And it was just sitting there. It looked horrible, and I just didn't want to get rid of it. So what I did was I just dug it out and stuck it in another bed that we redone. And it was one of the best okra plants I grew. So for me to disturb its roots and move it, and to have it to be one of my best, it might do very well growing into our fall season. So I'm going to try to start some now, get it out there, maybe when the weather is just starting to change. Because for us, remember, here in the subtropics of Florida, we don't get that cold. So if you're in a temperate climate, you might think I'm nuts, but it might be perfect for here. And the last one. Oh, what am I doing to myself? Oh gosh. I am going to try watermelon. Oh, if you've been following these videos, if you've been joining me on this gardening journey, you know that watermelon is not a winner for me this year. In fact, if you've been following the single seed challenges, I didn't forget my conclusion video. It will be coming. But yeah, watermelon, not so good. And it was suggested to me by not only my husband, but one of the viewers had said, why not I try my watermelon in fall? And I'll admit, it's just, I don't want to. And the reason why, well, I'm going to, but the reason why I didn't want to was because, man, I grew these so well the first 3 years of gardening. There was no problems at all, but I just started experiencing problems last spring and summer, and this spring and summer is absolutely probably the worst. So someone suggested, like I said, I try in fall, but then I remembered, I completely forgot. In that Rebel Seedling video, I also had a Rebel Seedling watermelon germinate and grow through part of my fall. Now, granted, it wasn't in the best spot. It wasn't getting much sun. It was kind of in the walkway where we would go. And in fact, in one of my tour videos, my dog sat on it. But that plant actually grew pretty darn well. And I think, if I remember correctly, it even had a female bloom, which is where the fruit is. So putting all the pieces together with my new struggles in growing watermelon, with my suggestions from you, and with the fact that, oh yeah, this kind of happened last year in fall and did pretty good, I'm going to intentionally try them this season. Oh goodness. And that's not everything that I am planting. Yes, I keep a lot of the seeds that I am planting for the season in these large ice cream buckets, and I have more seeds than this. These are not the only plants that I will be sowing and planting for the fall. Remember, this is just part one. I have at least 2 more videos that I am doing on everything that I am planting for the fall and winter season. So stay tuned for that. I also plan on doing how I'm going to be seed starting this season, because I do something different every season for whatever reason. And I think that's important to show you, because that's how we learn. And sometimes when we see different things, even if it's not ideal, because I'm going to tell you right now, it is not an ideal setup, I still have had great success despite all of the not so ideal circumstances, and I want to show you that too. So stay tuned for all of that. Don't forget to check out this video right here, so that way you can find out what you need to grow in your fall and winter season, especially here in the subtropics and tropical climates, because our timing is different, and that video will help you out. And of course, all these other videos too. Thank you for watching, and I'll definitely be seeing you in the next one, because we are not done.